All right. All right, guys, I'm starting. Thank you. All right, we got to catch up. So it was the shaders compiling thing. Everything's fine now. So where we left off was we were importing the skeleton mesh into Unreal as a T-pose. We only want to have, again, one skeleton mesh in the engine for each character, and we want to apply all the animations to that skeleton mesh. All right. So, and yes, to confirm all our worries, our skeleton mesh is here with its textures and everything's fine. So that was good. Putting it through Blender first was a good idea. Just Mixamo wasn't showing. The texture probably was just a too large of an image file or something like that. But I was clued in because it had some texture on the head and the hands and feet. So that's good. I've already downloaded a couple of flips, and then let's bring it in. All right, I'm already recording. When I double-click on the skeletal mesh, it opens up this window. This is called Persona. It's the way of looking at in more greater detail your skeletal mesh. You can again see your different materials. You can highlight where they are at, right? And this is what somebody else was getting through with their homework was how you can have different materials and different objects. So another quick little fix here is I'm forgetting here. So the materials, there is an eyeball somewhere in there. And the eyeballs aren't UV'd that well. If I open up again, make human. And thankfully, I saved my project file. There's two different meshes for the eyeballs, and if you come across this again, always use the low poly eyeballs, and they're perfect. Otherwise, our character is going to have these blank, dead eyes, just like Polar Express. If I open up our recent one. Let us navigate to it. This is that one. I just want to open you. Load. Oh, there's Doc. Okay. Give it a second to load. And just if I go back to my modeling, and I go to my where would it be? Face. Maybe it's my geometries. So I didn't really get into this. We could do low poly eyes, and those always look better. We can add hair, which we didn't do. Always add teeth. Eyebrows make people look a little bit more human. Don't need to worry about that. So if I was going to make it from scratch, I'd add in all these different items in there. So that's a thing to remember, and that's why it's always good to save your make human file. But for right now, we're just showing the import process. It's there with dead eyes and no eyelashes, which is kind of more disturbing. And then let's show how to do animations. So I have these few. I'm just gonna do one because my computer's going slow, so I'll do the lightest one. And I can either bring it in here, or sometimes I make a little folder, especially if your character's really complicated, and I do animations as a subfolder. And again, this is just based off of the style guides I've worked with in other projects. And then we try to find our skeletons. This is the important thing is it knows there's no mesh. So it's like, okay, there's no mesh here. You just have data. You obviously are in animation. So it's import animation, which is great. And we just need to find the animation, the skeleton to apply it onto, which was Doc T-pose the 4th. All right. And then we say import. And we have an animation file. Looks like the scale is a little bit too large. But that's easily changeable. And that was quick enough. Let's go ahead and let's get cocky and open up the next one. Bring it in, and same deal. Make sure you apply it to the skeleton. If I had exported from Mixamo a mesh, it would give me the option to import the mesh as well, and I would just say, don't import the mesh. Again, just import the data onto the skeleton. This is important because they know each other. Like I could flip, they're all allocated to this one asset of this mesh. And then when you start doing blending and those other kind of animation techniques, it'll work for you. And it's as easy as taking your world, finding a wall, I have a feeling he's going to be 100 times too big, or maybe at least 10 times too big, but we'll see. And then just drag our animation straight in. There you go. So let's do 0.1. And there you go. Cool.
Why did it make it so big?
So Make Human has its own units when you export. I'm going to say export, and I could choose decimeter, meter, inch, or centimeter. I could have chosen a different thing there. I could have rescaled it in Blender. There's lots of opportunities, but now that now that we've created a character that's too large in Mixamo, we should keep it consistent and just scale everything down, because if we start importing in, if you start scaling things differently, it's going to cause problems. So just keep it consistent. It's fine. We know how to fix it. It's just by a power of 10. Different softwares like Unity imports things smaller, Unreal imports things bigger. It's just they all do it different ways, and especially when you're dealing with other kind of things like Cinema 4D, like getting a scale is pretty funky, but usually it's just a factor of 10 off. So if I were just to simulate, that's the other one. So let's bring in the wall smaller. But it's kind of cool to have giant characters too. And because I'm simulating, it's kind of hard to grab. I got you. Almost. There we go. Oh no, I had you a second ago. There we go. I can cheat him forward. There you go. Yeah, but I'm going to show that in 2 weeks. Yeah, you can totally blend things, and it's a new feature. It's something that you would normally have to do in Maya or Motion Builder, but now you can do it inside the game engine. It's awesome. It's a great feature. Yes, Grant?
I just thought you hadn't dragged in a separate mesh to have that blend. You just switched it.
Yes, so I was just dragging straight in the animations. Obviously, if you're dealing with just Doc, you can bring Doc in by himself. And then you can say use animation asset, and you could choose which asset you want to bring in. But it's even quicker just to throw in the animation itself. And again, they're all connected to each other because they've all been imported. Again, the most important lesson of the week is one skeletal mesh. All animations go into that one mesh per character. If you're doing like the crowd sequences, like out of Make Human, if you make 100 characters, you can actually make them all keep one skeleton. Later on, you'll find this saves you an incredible amount of time, and that every character can share every animation, and this is where you're getting into with metahumans and all these other different things, is that you want to be efficient as possible, not to redo things over and over and over again. We're going to watch this. It's like this inheritance thing that we'll see with next week on materials and material instances and stuff. Now, you can't all share the same skeleton if there's different scales of character, so whenever I use the crowd plugin, I always make sure they're the same height, and I can bypass that. So we have not only the skeletal mesh, which is highlighted here in or underscored in pink. We see materials are in green. Right, we can open up our materials and see that these are just textures that are applied to the color, and those textures are here and underscored in red. Right, these are mapped to the geometry, the view of the geometry. And then what else do we have here? We have the animations. That's good. And then you have the skeleton itself, which there's various skeletons, but this is like the standard Mixamo one, and you get kind of familiar with all these different bone names, like left shoulder, left up arm, forearm, hand. You kind of have to get to know all those. Cool. I'm going to save these. And let's go ahead and look at the other avatar creation software. So this is another one that's kind of fun. don't know if you guys have seen Ready Player Me. This was cool because this one actually has built-in face tracking. A lot less features. It's very much Fortnite-esque, you know, in that it's like a cartoony kind of aesthetic. But you can create your own. You can even upload an image of yourself, and it can make a summary of kind of what you look like and try to figure out some sort of approximation of that. But it's all about creating your own avatar, right? I can take a photo and it can try to guess my hair color and features like that. Or you can just continue from scratch and choose some of the templates they have here. You see that I already created one with this hair, and very, very simple interface. Not a lot of scalability, but again, this company is addressing this idea of creating characters that exist throughout all IPs, right? You can do this in VR chat. You can do this in other Steam applications. So again, the idea that you have base color, you have different outfits. They upgrade these and update these all the time. That's a little bulky. There we go. It's nice. That's a nice professorial look. Well, this jacket's a little bit long. Change the hair. Right, pretty simple to figure out. Do you want facial hair or not? What color eyes? Eyebrows, color of eyebrows, all that stuff. Do they have any face bling? Any makeup? Are they wearing, masks? And then do you give them a fedora or not? So really, really easy. Let's go ahead and once we say enter hub, I do believe it'll give us the option to download it. There we go. It's generating. And then we're going to download an avatar GLB. If anyone's seen a GLB file, they're optimized for web. They are, by being optimized for web, they're very small. But they're not really recognized by a lot of platforms. Mixamo doesn't recognize GLB files. They're fairly new file format. I'm going to call this guy, what does he look like? Well, we have Doc. Let's do Doc and Mac. Looks like a Mac to me. Mac. Alright, so we have Mac GLB. But what does recognize GLB files? Blender. So we're going to pass it through Blender again. So you see, this is why I asked you guys to make sure we include a digital content creation tool. You have to enable it. It's not by default. In fact, it used to be that Maya didn't have FBX enabled by default, but yet it's its own file format. You know, it's just one of those things. So again, file import, and then you have the option for GLB, GLTF format. I like my downloads. There it is. And then I think it's fine to do it as is. This will import at the right scale. With it selected, I hold down F. It brings it full screen. That is the other dude. I want the other one. Let's do a new scene. So we're in Blender. This is the first time we've actually looked at Blender. A couple of things is that the first thing is that when Blender starts off, it has a cube and a light and a camera in there. You can just go over here to the outliner and delete them. But if you actually, once you delete them once, if you go to File, and then say defaults save startup file and say OK, then it will never open up with that light and that cube and that camera ever again. So I like to do that. Other thing I like to do is edit preferences, come down over here to key map, and then I change it from Blender to industry compatible. Dangerous because tutorials will no longer match, right? Because this is going to change all your key bindings. But for me, it's better because it's just like Maya. And so this is what I do so I can navigate the interface a little quicker. I don't know, when if I become more of a Blender purist, I might switch over. But the Blender key mappings you definitely don't want to do unless you have a 3-button mouse, or you can't get anywhere with it really. So those are 2 things I like to do when I start with Blender. Now I'm ready to go. Bring in Ready Player Me. We called it Mac. There we go. F, full screen. Oh, I didn't know I had a ponytail. Nice. And what's a little bit different about this? So when you open up Blender right now, this is called like the clay model. There's no textures. It's trying to render quickly, but you want to confirm your textures are there. Go over here. These are different view modes. Right? You have wireframe. We can now see it has a skeleton in there. Clay model, and now we can see we have a texture. There we go. Slowly popping in. This is totally a look. I've like met this guy before. This is totally a dude. And what's cool here, a little secret, we'll get into this much later. Not much later, but we'll get into this soon enough, is that if I find the face, he's already ready to animate. We can connect this to our iPhone, the app I showed you guys, and it would actually run in an Unreal Engine. But we'll get to that in a second. So, what we're going to do, we're going to put this in. Oh, 2 things to notice. First of all, this character is in a pose, right? And we want to do T pose just to be safe. So let's go take this to Unreal and put it in the T pose. So export FBX. And the settings were, I want to make sure I copy in these textures, embed them into the file. So that way it loads into Mixamo with all the textures. And then the other setting was I wanted to do face smoothing instead of vertex smoothing, and I'll get rid of that smoothing group error. And then I'm going to turn off apply modifiers because I think it will get rid of my facial animation stuff. So let's just do that for right now. We can get that a little bit later. This is now Mac 4, Mixamo, and we'll save our downloads. Groovy. And then if we go back to Mixamo, we can upload this new character. Just drag it in. That's much quicker. So again, the Ready Player Me thing is a little bit easier, quicker to get up and running, but again, you have a lot less selection and styles to choose from. So don't need to do the rigging thing, as it's already been rigged. We're ready to go. But the first thing I do is I'm going to put a T-pose. And that's this Scarecrow T-pose. So let's go ahead and download that. And we want this to be with skin because this is going to be the initial import of this new character. So with skin, as T-pose, download. It's going to be called T-pose. We're going to rename it. Show in folder. Downloads. That's the wrong one. And he should just, I'm going to hit F5 to refresh the window. There it is at top. And this one will be Mac. Now he's actually, we're just going to call him Donald Mac is his name. There you go. These things just evolve. I don't dictate this stuff. They name themselves. So we have Donald and Doc. Donald Doc. Ha ha ha. Alright. You have to keep yourself amused. Alright, so now we bring it in. And this is the initial import of this character, so I do want to import the mesh with it. It is, yes, a skeletal mesh. I don't want to apply it to another skeleton. I want its own skeleton be in there. Great. Import all. This is a warning about some of these assets. Basically, it tells you how to fix it. It says use frame 0 as the reference pose. So I'm going to undo that. Bring it one more time. And this is just a little setting. There's a show advanced arrow. And I want to use frame or time 0 as my reference pose, and I bring that in. No warnings. Didn't even warn us about smoothing groups. It's the perfect character. It just wants to rename a mesh, a texture name. That's fine. It's not even a warning. Lots of stuff involved. Cool.
Is there any time that you have that frame 0 turned off for any reason?
You know, sometimes things. Should you always have it selected?
Yeah.
I don't see no reason why not. Why it's not a default setting. I don't see one. And because the T-pose is also animation, we have a one-frame animation of a T-pose here. Maybe we do need it, maybe we don't need it. And let's give Mac some animations. Let's do a block. I think that one looks good to me. There you go. And then, do we want to, arm space, overdrive, height, all that kind of stuff? He needs to get that jacket tailored a little bit, but for the hell of it, I'll download it with the skin and show you how to fix that. So we're not doubling up our mesh. We'll just go ahead and download it with skin. It'll be called, what is it? Blocking. Cool. And let's import that in. I can make a folder for animations. I'll bring in my T-pose one. I want to move it. I don't want to copy it. And let's bring in F5 to refresh. That was F6. Blocking. And it says, oh, you want to bring in the skeletal mesh. Yes, it is a skeletal mesh, but I don't want the mesh. And now it's treating it like it's an animation. I should then find Donald Mac, import it. If I had imported it and I had included the mesh, then you would see a whole secondary, all the materials, all the textures, everything else would be imported again, and then you're creating a whole bunch of bloat for your project. So there we go. And now, instead of, and you see the scale is correct for this fella, and instead of our wall now, so we can time it up well. I'm trying to block them. Do it. He's kind of off of his head. It's not really on the ground. There you go, close enough for me. I don't think this position will be saved. I'm kind of simulating and playing around with it. What I'm going to do is with this character selected, I'm going to go to location, and I'm going to copy those numbers and hit stop. Yeah, it's no longer where I left it. I don't think. I need to select them, and I can paste it. Now it's perfect. Look at them sparring here. Cool. So I do have kind of a longer lecture on motion capture, going in different types and explaining what we're getting into, but I don't really have time to get into it and also show motion capture. So I'd rather just do the demo and show you guys actually how to deal with the data so we can dive into that for fun. And then I'll give you context and the history of motion capture some other day before we go into Mocap Studio. So we, and I included in our syllabus, we have a Radical Motion login. Again, this is a New York-based company that does webcam or phone-based motion capture. If you log in. Oh, I have too many like ad blockers on. I can't even log into their website. That's why we keep Firefox. All right, so it's get rad. And then I'm already logged in, but the username and password are there. And what it is it's you can look at all the different products and explore other people's stuff. Our takes are called projects. And right here you can see that you have a 3D representation of the video that's been uploaded. So it has some best practices. If you go to learn, it'll tell you like all the things you need to know. But all you really need to do is make sure you always keep your foot and your head in frame the entire time so it doesn't glitch out. And try to keep a little contrast between you and the background. Like if your wall is white, wear something darker, or the inverse. If your wall is black, wear something a little bit lighter. You can use green screen, it makes it look a little better, but it's not essential. There's some pretty convoluted backgrounds, and I've seen it work pretty well with it. So this is it. What you do is you upload your video file, give it whatever name you want. You could say whether or not it's widescreen or not. And then we have like 2 hours worth of footage, so don't no one upload a 2-hour video, so we can share with everyone else. Keep it short, and you can upload it. It'll process it over the course of like a few minutes. Maybe it's time to go like grab a coffee, come back, it'll be ready to download. And then we go back to your projects, and you'll see a list of all the ones that have been done for my class last semester. I took this one from Kevin from last semester, and I just upgraded it to the newest version of the AI so that it has better foot slippage stuff. It doesn't float around. This has been updated. And if I generate this FBX, it'll process it and get ready for download. See, there's a little slippage right there. It's not perfect, but for doing it from a webcam, it's awesome. And again, it has a software interface for actually live streaming it to Unreal Engine 2. So the skeletons are fairly similar, but they're not the same exact. The scales might be a little bit off. So what you need to do is you need to apply the emotion. I said the motion from one character to the scale of an avatar of a different ratio. So this is called retargeting, and you can retarget in a bunch of different software. I did it with my Firefox, which should go to the other downloads folder. And there we go. We have this take. Let's take a look at it. I'm going to put Maya. Any recent version of Maya will work. Maya Motion Builder is industry standard. We're going to spend the entire second half of our semester in Motion Builder. It's Windows only, unfortunately, but we'll be running it from the Motion Capture Studio. So I'm not going to worry about Motion Builder. You'll have plenty of exposure to that. But I'll show you Maya. Maya would still be considered industry standard. You retarget in Motion Builder, you bounce to Maya. I'll just show retargeting in Maya. It's all based off of what's called the HIK, or the Human IK system. Again, I'll get more into that when we go over the lecture of this stuff, maybe next week. But for right now, I just want everyone to be jumping into mocap and show that it's been democratized and we don't need a big studio to do it. So Maya is big and scary and it's old. It does tons of stuff. I know how to do 5 things in Maya. This is one of them, and it does it really well. And just, again, don't get intimidated by the fact that there's a whole new piece of software. I'm also going to show how to do this in Blender. So, and they're 2 completely wildly different processes. All right, so Maya's loaded, it's ready to go. By default, my human IK information is right here at the top left. And I am going to, first of all, bring in radical motion. Again, Maya is free for you guys to download. Most technical artist jobs will require you to be familiar with Maya. I'm going to drag this data in, give it a second to read out, and boom, there's our data. It's got like that forward moonwalk aesthetic, Anyway, so we have the data, and it looks like it's 442 frames long. All right, and if we go over here to this outliner, we see that we have all those bones. Right, all the hands, everything like that. It's good to get familiar with what these things are named: hips, upper leg, regular leg, foot, toe. And see, as I highlight them, they highlight everything over here. All right, and then it's motion capture data, so there's a keyframe every frame. But this is such a common naming convention. I don't want to be confused when I bring in my data bring in my avatar. So what I'm going to do is prepend a little name to this so that it makes it a unique name. I'm going to select all of the bones, so I can shift select if I want to, or I could set hips and say select all or select hierarchy. There we go. And underneath Windows, General Editors, a thing called a namespace. So when we prepend and put that little name in the front, that's called a namespace. We're going to open the editor up. We're going to make 2 namespaces, one for radical and one for Ready Player Me. Let's call it Ready. Okay. Now, this is what I was calling the human IK palette. We need to define a character. What it's called, we need to create a character definition and associate it with this. Basically, it's saying, what kind of skeleton is this? This is a biped skeleton. We need to create one and associate it with it. So I'm going to say, create a character definition. It's not associated with our motion capture data just yet. Just create that, and then it's called character 1. I want to rename this and call it radical. And then to associate the character with this skeleton, I'm going to select the hips from there, or select the hips from over here, and then choose that little folder and choose the human IK standard skeleton. That should say match all bones with here. Oh, I didn't add the namespace. Aha, caught myself. So these are I'll make sure every bone has the name radical in front of it. So I'm going to say add to all the selected. And now you see it says radical : hips. And that way, if I put in a bunch of characters, you can tell which skeleton belongs to which character. Right? So that was an important step. We're there. Now, when I open up and say I want to add human IK to these bones, it knows, oh, all the bones with this thing on there? Great. Now we can differentiate between different bones. Say okay. Oh, so let's go ahead and chuck it and delete it. So that's fine and all, but what I made the mistake of doing is I was scrolling around, and I remember how it's really important everything in T-pose. Radical's data by default has T-pose at the very beginning, and now all those errors went away. We're ready to go with the T-pose on 0. All right, it's 440 frames. So I'm going to do the same exact thing with our Ready Player Me character. I'm going to say add to all the selected. And now you see it says radical : hips. And that way, if I put in a bunch of characters, you can tell which skeleton belongs to which character. Right? So that was an important step. We're there. Now, when I open up and say I want to add human IK to these bones, it knows, oh, all the bones with this thing on there? Great. Now we can differentiate between different bones. So I'm going to do the same exact thing with our Ready Player Me character. Or I could do it with either one. Let's do this one with Ready Player Me first. Donald Mac. So loading, there's a little progress bar on the bottom left. Alright, again, these are warnings, they're not errors. There it is. Now there's an issue where the bones are kind of like scaled up really big. You can ignore it, or we can fix it. Again, not to give too much information, but if you select all the bones, there's a radius of 3. I can make them like 1. Let's see, was that off them? Radius. Oh, that's the mocap data. That was fine. It's all these. Select hierarchy. And they're at 9.9, so make these 1. Make these 0.1. There you go. Something like that. One. Cool. And so now we have this whole hierarchy selected. I want to prepend ready to it. And now we can differentiate between our two skeletons. Come back to human IK. And now I need to make a new character definition. Rename it to ready. And then with the hips selected, add the character, associate the character, choose the human IK default, and boom. Checkmark screen, everything's good to go. You see I have a character here called ready, and I have a source that's set to none. If I change my source to be a radical, it's going to chuck. And that wasn't supposed to happen. Let's go to frame 440. It's a little bit off. And this is, let's come back and get rid of, let's see, this character. Let's do, let's see, where did I put this in? From Mixamo. Alright. So we're back to our character here. Okay, that's the radical, and that looks all fine. Let's do the make human character. Which was called Doc. That was so long ago already. So again, he's the wrong scale. He already has a namespace from Mixamo because we rigged it there. But I could scale whole thing down. Or I don't even need to, because you can take characters from different scales and it should work. So let's just try that. Doesn't matter to us. My 4, 5, and 6 alternate between texture, grayscale, and wireframe. So this little guy is going to drive this bigger guy. Mixamo rigs, okay, that's great. Let's go back to human IK. And let's do a new character, rename it, and this one's now called Make Human. And let's go ahead and have load it up. Check the hips. Say this is the kind of character it is. And now let's have frame 440. Okay. I'm going to have the other. no idea why it's doing that. The armor's a little higher. I promise you I practice these things before I do them. Well, I don't want to scare anyone away from doing mocap. Everyone should at least shoot some mocap. We'll figure out the retargeting stuff later on. So anyway, if I was happy with the arms being too high, I no longer need, I want to go ahead and get rid of our mocap data. So I will just say bake the data to each other. It's going to run through the whole timeline. And then I can get rid of the mocap data. Little guy's gone. Big guy's still there. File, export. All. Downloads. We'll make sure we include the animation, 440. Great, and just say weird walk. And I did it to the other character. It's in the other folder. We want to make sure we're not bringing in the mesh. It is a skeleton mesh, but we don't want to bring in the mesh. And it is for Doc the 4th. Import all. It ends up working fine. It's incorrect, but it looks fine. Anyway, we'll get back to this. This is an ongoing topic. I'm organize it, put it in the right animation folder, bring it into here, scale it down. He's a happy boy. Yeah, no, he's totally like an infant. I should use the infant model. So this is just a bunch of explorations on skeletal meshes. The core thing is to again go back to the conceptual idea of what the assignment is, which is you've been working on this little story, whether it's absurd or not. Try to think about what character would live here or what characters would live here. At the very least, let's put some mixed mode animations on them. Let's bring in the world. Let's just practice the skeletal mesh pipeline. That's the homework. Everything else was just showing you that there's a whole world out there and you can do your own motion capture and all that kind of stuff for fun. Cool. So great job with all the homework assignments today. There's a lot of great screenshots. If you want to do, because we're doing animations, if you guys want to upload video, that'd be better for this documentation. Again, don't upload video directly to Slack. Put it on your blog and then upload a link to your blog on Slack. We didn't make a week 3 yet, so I'll go ahead and make a week 3 right now. Create it, week 3. So you guys can join that and play around with your little avatars. And that's it. Thank you for your patience today. I'll try to